I found the Emmys much more torturous than Mother, than watching Jennifer Lawrence go through hell, literally. So here, let's begin at the very beginning. Here is Stephen Colbert's opening.
Dear friends, the next time world's problems make you feel the blues, turn on any channel, well, except the news, 'cause troubles aren't so troubling when you see them in HD. The world's a little better on TV.
The world's a little better on TV. That is the thesis here. And it's kind of frustrating that Colbert is such a good performer. He's a great showbiz performer, and all he does is he's just a hack the whole time. He's just telling these super hacky
It's such a waste,
jokes.
Michael.
It is. It's a huge waste of talent, and so that's the contention. Everything is better on TV. Well, is it? Let's see how the world looks through the lens of TV. Let's kick it off.
Who are you rooting for tonight?
I'm rooting for everybody black. I am.
That is Issa Rae. That is a YouTuber turned into a TV star. And in this world, she is representing the black people who are deeply oppressed by Hollywood. Black people cannot get a break in Hollywood, and so we have to have racial solidarity. One can only imagine if I said I'm rooting for all the white people in the Emmys, but that is what she's saying. And so is it reality? Absolutely not. Ethnically, this is the most diverse Emmys that has ever been had, from the performers to the presenters. Last year was also quite diverse. It was so ethnically diverse, meaning there were so many minorities, in particular black actors there, that the hashtag Emmys So Black actually started trending last night in response to the Oscars So White claims of a couple years ago. So reality seems a whole lot better than the world of TV in that instance. But let's keep going. Stephen Colbert, what else have you got?
Americans has hotter spies than the Russia inquiry. Even treason's better on TV.
Treason. And right before that, Julia Louis-Dreyfus accuses Donald Trump of sympathizing with Nazis. So in the world according to TV, Donald Trump is a Nazi and a traitor. Now, I think separately. One might imply the other, but he is separately a Nazi and a traitor. Now, in reality, of course, Donald Trump has repeatedly disavowed Nazis, the handful of neo-Nazis who apparently support his campaign. By comparison, Democrats never have to disavow Antifa or Black Lives Matter riots that have occurred in cities across the country, and those people who support them, they never have to acknowledge it. On the Russia story, on the treason story, even Van Jones, a far left-winger and commentator and political analyst, says that the Russia story is, quote, a nothing burger. But of course, nobody with two brain cells to rub together would think that Donald Trump is a Manchurian candidate for Russians. In the world of TV, he's a Nazi and a traitor. In reality, he's just some guy. It's not a big deal. Speaking of traitors, here is Jane Fonda giving her little speech to the Emmys last night.
Well, back in 1980 in that movie, we refused to be controlled by a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot.
Really? And in 2017, we still refuse to be controlled by a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot.
Where's the puke bucket? I need the puke bucket.
The virtue, it's tremendous. It's sickening me, all of the virtue signaling. Now that, for those who are either listening or who couldn't get a good glimpse, that woman who was speaking is a traitor. That woman is an actual traitor, Jane Fonda, who aided and abetted our enemies during Vietnam while they were killing and imprisoning and torturing American soldiers. She sat on top of anti-aircraft guns and took photos, anti-aircraft guns simulating shooting down American planes. That's what that woman, and she's saying that in this country, Donald Trump is a sexist, misogynistic bigot who's pushing everybody around. Who's pushing you around, Jane Fonda? Nobody is pushing you around, but perhaps somebody should, because this traitor to her country, this seditious actress, gets to give absurd speeches lambasting the president, wrongly lambasting the president, slandering him on national television. Nobody's pushing her around. Nobody's stopping her from doing that, unfortunately, perhaps. But that's the world of TV. In the world of TV, in the world of imagination, then President Trump is a tyrant who is oppressing everybody, including traitors like Jane Fonda. Now, apparently we're not living in such authoritarian times, at least Chance the Rapper shows up to finally bring a little levity and to entertain us, just like Stephen Colbert promised, right? Wrong, I'm just kidding. He came out and just gave another stupid political speech. So Chance the Rapper, from what I could understand from his rap performance, asked, one, why cops on television shows aren't convicted as murderers, why men with psychological disorders like transgenderism cannot serve in the military openly, and he insists that we DVR our televisions so that we can go and protest Donald Trump. By the way, this attack came within the first 2 minutes of the broadcast. This was Chance the Rapper. So at least we can hope, that the big awards for the night will make good on that promise of lighthearted fun. Everything's better on TV, right? Right? Isn't that? No, absolutely wrong. Here's what's won.
I was asleep before. That's how we let it happen. When they slaughtered Congress, we didn't wake up. When they blamed terrorists and suspended the Constitution, we didn't wake up then either. Now I'm awake. My name is Offred. I had another name.
Ladies, I have to let you go. It's the law now.
I'm sorry, I fell asleep during that trailer, as I did through every single episode of that tedious and pedantic show, which Norm Macdonald rightly called subpar science-fi trash. It won everything. It won Best Drama, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, a couple other awards as well.
We do need to clarify, this was in the same category as The Crown.
It was, oh my gosh, it was The Crown. It beat out Stranger Things. It beat out Westworld. This was a year of good shows.
Unbelievable.
This was a year of good shows, and they won. And the reason that Handmaid's Tale won, it really is not a good show. It's poorly written. It's poorly conceived. The acting is fine, I suppose. It's absurdly slow. You really can't watch it and maintain any interest. But the reason it won is because Donald Trump is living rent-free in all of their heads in Hollywood. And so they had to give it to the show to send a message about the alleged oppression, right? So in that show, the women, Elizabeth Moss, they're living in a world in which women are subjugated by radical Christians. Now, this is ironic because in our world today, the only place where women are not subjugated is in traditionally Christian nations. But if the show had any guts, they would portray female oppression in a Muslim world. They would portray female oppression in a world where there are consequences to making such claims. But of course they can't do that. So they have to make it about radical Christians oppressing women. When I look around, in reality, that does not appear to be the case. So that's the world according to TV. In that world, Trump gets pretty negative coverage, you might say. Obviously the coverage from the Emmys. But there was a Harvard University study that showed that CNN and NBC gave Trump 93% negative coverage. 93%. Now, to put that in perspective, that same study showed that Barack Obama got 41% negative coverage, George W. Bush 57% negative coverage, and Bill Clinton 60% negative coverage because of all of the sex scandals. But Donald Trump, 93%. Now, what about reality? How does reality look? In reality, the economy is growing. There was accelerated economic growth during Trump's first full quarter. The White House is repealing the unconstitutional executive amnesty and possibly addressing it by legislation. There are stronger lobbying bans for ex-White House employees than we've seen in recent memory. There is the repeal of one mandate forcing taxpayers to fund Planned Parenthood, another one forcing taxpayers to fund abortions overseas. Looks like good news to me. Major reduction in regulations and delays in our energy sector to get the economy going again. Some reports show that there have been 16 regulations repealed for every new regulation added. There's a decline in illegal immigration since Donald Trump was inaugurated, and we have a Supreme Court justice who respects the Constitution. Seems to me like everything is worse on TV. Let's bring on our panel to discuss. We're very lucky, making her debut on the Michael Knowles Show Panel of Deplorables. We have Candace Owens, better known by her YouTube name, Red Pill Black. Candace, thank you for being here. We have,
I'm happy to be
from
here.
the Daily Wire, Jacob Airey, and from Lepanto Live, we have His Eminence Paul Bois. Now, before we begin, I should be fair, there was one moment of levity during the telecast. That was when Sean Spicer made a surprise appearance, and here he is.
Of course, what really matters to Donald Trump is ratings. You got to have the big numbers. And I certainly hope we achieve that tonight. Unfortunately, at this point, we have no way of knowing how big our audience is. I mean, is there anyone who could say how big the audience is? Sean, do you know? will be the largest audience to witness an Emmys, period, both in person and around the world. Wow, that really soothes my fragile ego. I can understand why you'd want one of these guys around. Melissa McCarthy, everybody, give it up.
So it was a knock on Trump, but it was actually a pretty funny moment. You know, it was a little bipartisan at least. They had a Republican kind of making fun of himself and having a nice little moment. But of course, Hollywood and the mainstream media hate it. CNN ran the headline today, quote, "Why did the Emmys help Sean Spicer rebrand?" The Huffington Post ran, "Angry viewers are in no mood to laugh at Sean Spicer's Emmy jokes." And the Washington Post, "Democracy Dies in Darkness," said, "Spicer's yucky cameo at the Emmys. That is why we can't have nice things. Hollywood used to be glamorous, and now it's crass and vulgar." Paul Bois, should Sean Spicer have shown up? Was it a nice moment, or was he sucking up to Hollywood limousine leftists?
I mean, I agree with the spirit of the act. It's fun, it's joke, but at the end of the day, this is Hollywood. They're not there. They're not going to go, "Oh yeah, that's so funny, Spicer's laughing at himself." They're just going to laugh in that moment and then go back to just being mean-spirited and bashing him, you know, behind his back. And that's why Colbert later in the night made that joke against Spicer. I forget exactly what he said. So, I mean, it's just, I don't agree with sucking up to people that just basically want to punch you in the face.
You think he shouldn't have shown up?
Yeah.
Red Pill Black, gone are the days of Bob Hope. What has made Hollywood so leftist and so screechy in just the last few years?
Honestly, I don't know. I think it's for the first time ever we're seeing what it looks like when these spoiled toddlers don't get what they want. And they didn't get what they wanted, who they wanted in the White House. And now we have to endure this super long 4-year, hopefully 8-year whine that doesn't seem to be going away. And it's when you watch the show, it's like they're just in this echo chamber laughing at themselves and they just can't get enough of themselves. And they have no idea what's going on outside in the real world.
I see that. And you bring up a great point, which is that it's all about the presidential election. We saw all of this after George Bush won the presidency. You had Michael Moore ruining the Oscars and making stupid speeches. And it just seems to be when they get their way, then they basically behave. And when they don't get their way, then they have to ruin every bit of fun and entertainment that we can ask for out of Hollywood. Jacob.
Right.
The whole show was about Trump. The entire thing. I mean, I pulled out a handful of clips. I could have shown the whole 2-hour telecast. Isn't that exactly what Trump wants? Doesn't he want the attention? Doesn't he want to live rent-free in their head? And if so, why do they give him what he wants?
I think it's just part of their bubble, right? So they think, we've just got to keep hammering, because they expect Trump to act like George W. Bush. So, you know, he's going to be passive. He's going to ignore it because, you know, President Bush thought the president should be above all this Hollywood criticism. So they're shocked when Trump just goes after them. You can tell their feelings were very hurt when he totally ignored them on Twitter. That was the best part of this whole thing.
He is so wily, especially on Twitter. And speaking of Donald Trump driving people crazy, President Trump has just given his first speech to the UN this morning, and he claimed, in typical Trumpian fashion, that the organization that's been around for 72 years has, quote, tremendous potential, which I love. Now, we have to talk about this. It's a great story. You can learn about all of these things. You can learn about the rapture. You can hear about Mother and why all the reviewers are getting Mother wrong. But you can't do it right now. You have to do it at thedailywire.com. So we have to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for everyone who's already a subscriber. If you're a subscriber or you want to become a subscriber, go to dailywire.com right now. It's only $10 a month, $100 a year. You get me. You get the Andrew Klavan Show. You get the Ben Shapiro Show. I know what you're thinking. So what? So what? Well, that's what I have to say to that. The Leftist Tears Tumbler can be yours with an annual subscription. Now, this tumbler, I had this last night next to my television set. It was overflowing. I'm gonna have floor damage because of all the leftist tears that were pouring out of my screen. Now, you need the best vessel on the market to carry leftist tears as well. This is absolutely indestructible. It will survive the rapture that is being predicted for 5 days from now. So go over to dailywire.com, get yours, keep your leftist tears hot or cold, always salty and delicious, and we'll be right back.